Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We're starting today the portion of Ki Teitze from first Sikha, the first talk of the Rebbe, from selections from the Kutei Sichot. I would like to show you an introduction. Let's begin. This week's Torah portion, Ki Teitze, contains 74 commandments out of 613. It's more than 10%. It's the largest number of commandments in a single portions. Some of the commandments here are a repeat of previously mentioned commandments, some are new. So the Torah is not large in quantity, number of verses, also it's not short, but it contains more than any other portion. We will concentrate on one of the commandments to create a guardrail. The Torah tells us that when you build a new house, or when you purchase or move into a new house, you must prevent any danger for a human being to get stumbled upon or get hurt. But the way the Torah is wording the warning or the requirement is very, very peculiar, and the Rebbe is going to address two major questions. I would like to read, it's fairly short, the verses that deal with the guardrail, chapter 22, verse 8 and 9 and 10, maybe. I'm sorry, it's only one verse. Here it is, verse 8. When you build a new house, you must make a guardrail for your roof, because the roof is utilized for storage, for partying, for relaxation, for scouting the neighborhood, the watching sunset, etc. You must put a guardrail. Number two, do not allow blood to be spilled in your house when one who is destined to fall falls from your unprotected roof. The Torah says, you know why you have to make a guardrail? So that the one who is going to fall, it will not fall. So you do not allow for blood to be spilled. That's the text. In the Hebrew, it sounds much shorter and very clear. The Rebbe, I'm going to show it you an introduction. If we have time, we're going to read it in the text. The Rebbe is asking two questions. The first question is, the Torah wants to teach us to make sure that no one trips and falls off the roof. Makes sense to warn us that we must put a guardrail. The question is, why the Torah uses when you build a new home? What happens if it's not a new home and there was no guardrail? Imagine the Jewish people entering the Holy Land, all the Canaanites and the 7 nations ran away and we moved into a house that did not have a guardrail. What if I added a floor and I did not have a guardrail before on the second story? Now we have a new roof. What do you mean when you build a new home? What if you acquire a new home? What if you inherited a new home? You won the lottery, they gave you a house. It's an old home. You inherited it from someone did not pay, and this was a collateral, a pawn, and you used it. Why is the Torah use it? Because the commandment for building a new roof comes with a reason. This is very unusual. Not very unusual, but it's not always the case that the Torah gives us a reason. The Torah tells us, make sure to prevent spilling clean blood, unwarranted death, that the person who stands on the roof should not fall and get hurt and get killed. So I don't understand. This is not necessarily for new home. This question is clear. The Sifri is the commentary to the Torah that preceded the Talmud, explains that you learn it in Hebrew. It says Mishat Chidusho, Bait Chadash, new home. Chadash is new. Bait is home. Mishat Chidusho means that God uses this language to teach us that the obligation to put a guardrail is the moment you acquire the house. It has nothing to do with living there. An example where you don't have to do it mishat chidusho, you don't have to be immediately, is a mezuzah. Mezuzah, we have a commandment, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha. Write it on the parchment, the portion of Shema and Vayah, on the doorpost of your home and your gateway to your home. It doesn't have to be when I purchased or acquired or I was gifted. Only after I move in and live there for a couple of days. In Israel, if somebody lives in the Holy Land, they have 7 days before they put up the mezuzah. In the diaspora outside of Israel, it takes 30 days. So for first 30 days, you have to put a mezuzah. That's why, said the Sifri, the Torah uses the term Bait Chadash, meaning that you have no time to wait. Guardrail must be placed as soon as you are allowed to enter. So in other words, if you apply for a CO, certificate of occupancy, at the moving into a house, guardrail has to be there before you get anyone to enter. That's why.
So if you want to think ahead of everything, the guy comes and falls down and gets killed. God led him there and punished him, even if you didn't put a guard up. The blood's not only on your hand.
Okay, that's the second part. We didn't get to the blood. Okay, you're asking a good question, a legitimate question, but it has to be dealt with when we get there. The Rebbe says that this interpretation, that's why the Torah is talking about new house, meaning from the moment you acquire, without waiting for moving in, you must place a guardrail because it's a matter of life and death. Says the Rebbe, if it's so, why does it say when you build? The word is Ki Tivne Bait Chadash. It shouldn't, and nothing to do with building the house. When you acquire a new home, if that's the reason why the Torah uses this language to teach us that the responsibility of the owner is the moment he acquires it, it doesn't apply only when you build it. What if someone else built it for you? What if your brother gifted it to you? What if you married a wife and she has a house and there was no guardrail? You have the same obligation. Immediately when you take possession, someone who converts, the moment they get converted, they have to put a guardrail if they want to continue living in that house. We understand that. Makes sense because it's a matter of life and death. It's not to do with building. Why does the Torah use the term when you build a new house? That's the first question. The second question the Rebbe is asking, the text reads that you should prevent the spilling of blood because the one who is going to fall will fall and die. That's what it says. Says the Rebbe, you want to prevent someone from falling. So how can you call him fallen? Also, the language is present tense, not in the future. Maybe someone will fall. It says ki yipol, someone will fall. Anofel is present right now. Is falling. In other words, you're dealing with someone who is falling anyway, and if he falls, it's going to be on you. The Gemara is asking this question, and the Gemara's answer is what Harry's question is. The Gemara answers that no one can take away life from somebody. It's all planned by God. And therefore, that person that falls off the roof deserves to die as a part of God's plan. He wouldn't die for no reason. He's going to die anyway. And yet the Torah tells you, do whatever you can to prevent it so that you shouldn't be blamed for the ending of life of somebody. That's why it says, Ki yipol hanofel mimeno, because less a person who deserves to die will die, and then you will be responsible for it. Harry, does that address your question? Okay. Says the Rebbe, first, you do not use the word yipol hanofel, present falling, because the purpose is to make sure no one falls. How can you call him already falling? Also, the Gemara's explanation, Rashi brings it, but it's not addressing the simple text. It's a drash. It's deeper to understand the wording, but the simple way is very hard to understand. Why does the Torah says, put a guardrail because you want to prevent spilling of blood? Because the one who is falling is going to fall. It doesn't make sense. Just lest someone falls. That makes sense. But the wording is very, very peculiar. Did you understand two questions? So again, the first question, why do the Torah uses new home, guardrail for a new home? In addition, the Rebbe says the word build a new home, it's not necessarily building. The guardrail is required on all structures. And the second question is, by the way, my father told me, my father got married and in Kfar Chabad, and he moved into his house in Kfar Chabad, the first two-story building in that village. Until now, it's known by the elders as Kiryat Shmone, the building of eight units, because there were two entrances, and each entrance had two units on the bottom, 2 units on top. We lived on top. So it's 8 residents. The first one had 2 stories. He told me that there was a guardrail by the steps, not on the roof. The roof has no guardrails. No one is allowed to go. There is no easy access to the roof. But just going down stairs, there was guardrail. My father says he went and measured the height, and the height was below the requirement of 10 tfachim, 10 handbreadths. So he went to the community, to the Vaad, to one responsible, and asked them to fix it. And they had to fix it. They brought in a, what do you call someone?
A mason or something.
Not a mason, someone who works with metal.
A welder.
A welder. They brought in a welder, and he added an extra line so that children or somebody should not tip over and fall. Because the guardrail is not just for the roof. The guardrail is to prevent any possibility, of course, of someone getting hurt. And therefore, that applies all the time at any given situation. But the Torah uses the example of building and a new house. The Rebbe says it's not limited to that possibility. It's across the board. The second question, why does the Torah explains us the reason is that perhaps someone is going to fall by using the verb that the fallen person is going to fall? And the Gemara's answer is that it's already predetermined that the guy is going to fall. Does not meet the simple understanding of the text. It's only drash that the Gemara is bringing. So the Rebbe begins by saying that in Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, it's a medrash again, a medrash traced to Rabbi Eliezer, also preceded the Mishnah. Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer says that God had done in this universe certain things to cause the person to humble themselves and realize they are not God, and someone else created them. Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer says that when God created the universe, this is the wording of Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. I'm not going to go into details because I don't fully understand. I'm just quoting the Medrash. And I explain the way the Rabbi explains it. Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer says that when God created the universe, he created 4 corners, but there is one corner, one side, 4 sides. There is one side, northern side, who is unfinished. Northern wind. Anybody heard of northern winds? What is northern wind? A very strong, devastating wind. The Gemara, the Medrash, and the Gemara brings it. God created the universe in an incomplete manner. One side is incomplete. And he says, if you feel you're God or equal to God, I created 3 sides. Let's see you finishing the 4th side. Now, the understanding, the way I understand, because I've studied it many, many times, is there is natural disasters that occur continuously today, the way they were 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. There are hurricanes, there is floods, there is tsunamis. They all come from the north side, okay? Now, if someone feels that they are as powerful as God, just like God created 3 sides, God is going to say, stop natural disasters. Stop anything that comes from the north side. Let's see if you can do it. In other words, there is no boundaries, there is no side to it. So all danger, all devastations come from the north side. Did I make myself clear? Says the Rebbe, the same is the human mind. People think that they are the smartest and they know everything. But God created rules.
Not this table.
Wrong.
Wrong. God created the human being in a way that we cannot, not only we cannot comprehend everything, but in order for us to comprehend something, we must come to rules that make no sense, that defy logic. The reason is to remind us that logic and intelligence is very limited. That's the way the Rebbe explains that. Take it or leave it. The Rebbe says that in order for you to comprehend an idea or understand something, you must first be familiar and verse yourself with the rules that apply. Do the rules make sense? No. But once you accept them, because that's the way it is, then you can understand the topic. Algebra, math, there are certain rules. The power of gravity, electricity. We don't know much about them. We know that you must accept that they exist, or that's the way it is. Once you accept those rules, why? Because you discover them in nature. Now things make sense. Now you understand why if you stick your finger into the outlet, you're going to get electrocuted. You don't understand how electricity works. You just know that these are the rules. Either you obey the rules or not. Yesterday, someone told me that you went to do theory in studying in a permit for driving. He's an Israeli, don't speak English, so his daughter, who speaks English, went with him. She translated, so he had to be asked questions. One of the he says to me that the questions that they asked is something he never knew, never prepared. One of the questions is, when you double speed, if you double the speed limit, and you get involved in a car accident, what is the force of you getting into the other vehicle or object? Is it time 1, time 2, or time 4? Did you understand the question? What's the answer?
Times 4.
Times 4 is the answer. So if you drive to 20 miles above the speed limit, when you hit the object, the force of you hitting is 4 times as much. You know, and then he says to me, do I know it? Why do they ask me these questions? But then he turned to me and he says, you know, all the questions, I never pay attention to them, but they make sense. They make sense. The answers make sense to me as I learn new things. In other words, you accepted why, you don't know why, but this is the way God created the universe. You know, the reason God did it, says the Rebbe, is to remind us that we are not God. God set the rules, we accept them, and then we can live happily. Did you understand that? Make sense? Any questions? It was difficult for me to understand at first. So again, the Rebbe says, Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer tells us that God left the northern side open, meaning a lot of devastations come from that side. Because if someone comes and says, I'm God or I'm equal to God, we say, God says to him, I created 3 sides. Let's see you close the 4th side, the north side. In other words, let's see you stop natural disasters. The Rebbe goes on and says that we see it in common sense with the human being. God created common sense that we are curious to find the reasons and how things work. As long as we have accepted the rules that pre-existed. Oh, and do they make sense? No, they don't make sense. But once you accept them, now things will make sense. And the way I apply it is in nature. There are things you don't know how they work, but you have to accept that this is part of nature. And therefore, for example, a father and a mother love their children, even if the children are in jail. But that's the way it is. Now you understand why they're going to be there for them. They're going to help them. There are many other common sense. So far, so good. Says the, yes.
Well, I'm just saying, my father said to us one time, it was always there. It just took a while for people to uncover or discover them. God created that.
So that's right. So that's another proof that God created the universe. Says the Rebbe, the same things is with the Torah. There are components, some components of the Torah that it's impossible to explain unless you study Kabbalah. Why does God do it? To share with us that the Torah cannot be fully comprehended unless Kabbalah is part of the Torah. And here in the story of New Home, is a prime example. It's one of those places that God, so to say, is He planted a code so that if someone says, I don't study Kabbalah, we say to him, you don't study Torah. Because the Torah cannot be comprehended unless you study Kabbalah. And therefore, only Kabbalah will address those two questions, and the Rebbe is going to take it very deep. The Rebbe is going to answer that on a simple terminology from Kabbalah point of view, and then the Rebbe will take it much farther. And that's what I love by the Rebbe. When the Rebbe goes on deeper, it means he wants to address something much different than the way was accommodated by the first time. And I'm going to hopefully show it you both. Yes, Roger.
The concept of new home, it's not necessarily a newly built structure. It's a new abode.
It says Ki Tivne when you build. You know what building means? You didn't get it as an inheritance.
No, what I'm saying.
Your
it's
wife
not-
didn't
it's
give
not
it to you as a
that
gift.
you-
Tivne. It doesn't say Ki Tikne Bait Chadash when you acquire or purchase.
Right.
Or Ki Tavo Lebait Chadash when you enter a new house. It says Ki Tivne when you build. It's simply building. It's not something that came to you as a prize that you won or that your spouse brought to you.
It's something that you
It
actually feel.
cannot be, the word is Ki Tivne. And the Rebbe says, nothing to do with building. It has to do with the structure of preventing people getting hurt. That was the first question.
I can explain it.
I want to ask you a question about what you just said. That part of Torah is you don't listen to Torah unless you learn Kabbalah. I grew up hearing that you don't learn Kabbalah, you'll start learning Kabbalah until you're 40 years old, and yet a 5-year-old cannot be taught Kabbalah.
So you're asking Kabbalah should be studied only when you're 40 years
No, I'm
old?
saying Kabbalah should be studied at the age of 5 or whenever you learn
Of
Torah.
course, I studied at the age of 5.
You're an
The
exception.
I'm not. The Arizal said mitzvah legalot zot hachochma. The Arizal lived in the 16th century, and he explained that the only way to study Torah and connect to God is by studying the Kabbalah. Now, there are two types of Kabbalah. There is Kabbalah ma'asit, using Kabbalah for finding out about the nature of the person, etc., which Hasidic teaching is totally shun out of it. We do not engage in that. And there is Kabbalah Talmudit, study the Torah, understand my purpose in life. How do I get closer to God? How do I serve God? And that Kabbalah, when my children were born, they study it. When I was born, I studied it. And that's what the Baal Shem Tov's teaching was, and mostly through the Alter Rebbe, the Chabad Rebbe, because all the other Hasidim, they study the Tanya, which is the basis of the Kabbalah. Everything we study is based on that. So, again, the Rebbe says, just like the world was not incomplete for a purpose, just like common sense is not going to work for you unless you accept the rules of common sense. It is for the purpose of humbling a person to realize that he is not God and God has created it. So too regarding the Torah. It came from God, it's complete. But God planted in certain spots text that will not be accommodated or answered unless you study Kabbalah. The Rebbe will take it way, way deeper. As I said, in 2 levels. The Rebbe is going to go deep and then you go much deeper. And let's begin.
Does this also apply to Chukim?
To every part of Torah, we have Kabbalah. Zohar, by the way, the Zohar, the basis of Kabbalah, is based on Torah portions. So they have teaching on every Torah portion, every single Torah portion of the Torah. And therefore, it applies to all categories of the commandments. But it's not just the Chukim, it's not just the commandments, it's also to the stories of the Torah that it cannot be understood unless, for example, Moshe, you read about his birth, you read about his maturity, and that's it. You don't know about him until he's 80.
Right.
What happened in between?
There's lots of midrashim.
Lots of midrashim, right. The Zohar will explain that. The Kabbalah explains. Abraham, we read about his birth, he's married, and then he's 75. What happened all the years? The same applies to in the Torah about the 40 years of the desert, by the way. There is a gap of 38 years. A lot of action took place after the Korach was the last, and that's when Moshe said to God, make sure that it's reverberate them in such a way that they will not attempt a second time. And that's what happened when the earth swallowed Korach and his family in his possession. For 38 years, he was going to bed on time and waking up on time. There was no emergencies and nobody trying to stone him. So you don't read about the 38 years. Literally, there's 38 years a gap you don't hear about. There are things in the Torah that when you delve into it, they require explanation. The only one that explains the Kabbalah. So, but here there is no other option. That's the point. So we're going to start with the simple Kabbalistic interpretation, and then we will get into the deeper. And I want to cover both. The first one, the Rebbe says, house refers to the spouse or wife. The Torah tells us, Beito zu ishto. The wife is considered the house. Homemaker, right? It's called homemaker. It's all about home. Rabbi Yossi Aglili, famous Rabbi from the Tanaim, he never referred to his wife as a wife, but his house, his home. My home says, my homemaker says. Akeret in Hebrew, akeret abayit, homemaker. That's what a wife is, says the Rabbi. According to Kabbalah, it refers to a spiritual change of the human. When you build a new home, what does building a new home? Getting married. When you get married, you are building a new home. For those of us who are not married, the second one will address in a much deeper level. But I need you to understand that getting married is an essential part of serving God in most instances. And the reason is because that's how you create a new home among Jewish people. So we'll circle back to it. Now, the Torah says when you build a new home, you must create a guardrail. You know why? Because the person is a fallen person. In order for someone to get married, they need to disengage of their lifestyle, going to bed when they wanted, studying Torah at will, praying longer than usual, and now they are limited to the confines of the spouse. By the way, it applies to a wife towards a husband and a husband towards a wife equally. In other words, when you get married, when you are building a new home, you are a fallen person. You are unable to connect to God in the way you were able to before. When I was in yeshiva, I studied 8 hours a day at least, sometimes 14 hours a day, if you include prayer. Today, once you got married, it's a big no-no. You have to eat dinner with your spouse. You have to go out shopping with your spouse. You have to listen to your spouse. You have to visit relatives of your spouse. Otherwise, you're a bad husband. Same as the wife. In other words, there has to be a guardrail. As the Sifri said, unlike mezuzah for protection that you have 7 days or 30 days, you are not allowed to enter into that new home that you build unless you create a guardrail. You know what a guardrail is? As we will discover soon, it is self-nullification, bitul, allowing for God to enter into your home. Because you are falling down, you are going to be engaged in Kabbalistic terminology with the physicality and materialistic universe. The spouse resembles this universe, the material activity. By the way, relationship with a wife only apply when you got married. Before and you have no idea. You don't know anything. I needed training. My children need training about how to relate in a physical intimacy. And the reason is because we are very lofty, spiritual, to the best possible way. Once you get married, it's a whole big no-no. You have to please somebody else. You have to be there for somebody else. You have to start serving God on a whole different level. And therefore, you are falling down. You are not at the same spiritual state of mind. You're not in the same
So-
spiritual standing. And therefore, in order for you to enjoy and live in the new house, you have to put a guardrail, and the guardrail have to be there from the first moment. Soon we'll discover why from the first moment to another dimension. And that guardrail will protect the marriage. Now, the Rebbe is talking about spiritual ascension to God. I'm talking about relationship. Today, when I counsel young people about marriage, I say to them, if you are about me, what's in it for me? Is it worth for me? Am I going to be able to continue college? Are the children going to hurt my traveling schedule? You are not going to be married. There is no unity of marriage, new home. New home is built only with guardrail, only with bitul. Once you know you need to please somebody else, you need to be there for someone else's plans and be able to live a life so the other person is happy, and it apply both sides. Then you are the falling down, you're falling down. And that answers the same question. It's not that maybe someone will fall. You are falling down. You continuously falling. Why? Because you disengage of your spiritual connection to God. At the same time, that's the only way for you to create a new home. Why? Because that's what God wanted. God wanted you to build a new home, so you go down on the spiritual level, but you connect with your spouse, and together you are continuing that home to be safe. The safety of the home depends on guardrail. The guardrail must be there from the moment you enter, you completing the building. In other words, you get married, and that is the guarantee for the marriage, for the connection to God. So far, so good. I will address question only directly to this topic because I want to get a little deeper. Any question? No question.
Yeah,
Oh.
so it's just a little puzzling to me. If you have reached a certain level spiritually, and then you get married, and then you said you're falling, there's a compromise. You have to give up certain things. If our only purpose is to serve God and to be the highest we can be, why would you have to fall below a certain level just because of a marriage?
Okay, so the answer, let me make sure I understand the question.
Yeah.
You're saying that before you get married, you're on a spiritual high.
Yes,
You're much closer to God.
yes,
Now, the Torah tells us that when you build a new home, you actually are falling down.
right,
And you're always going to remain farther from God than you were before you got married.
right,
The question is why, right? That's the
Yes.
question?
yes,
That's the question the Kabbalah tells us, that Kabbalah addresses and the Torah addresses in every single story. And that is, God wants you to be as far as possible from God and still obey God. And that's why we live in a physical universe and not being spiritual beings. In other words, that's the deepest desire of God, to be there together with someone else who don't think like you, don't like the same things, and you nullify yourself to accommodate that person. It will please God much more than when you're on a spiritual high and you're serving God. It's just like the comparison between angels who never disobey God, never deviate from God's command, except there are few exceptions, but usually they don't, versus a human being. So in other words, the farther you are from spirituality, the deeper the potential there to connect to God. And it brought up in Kabbalah on many, many levels. Does that address your question?
yes, I'm at
Okay.
the point, where it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't
But
make
that's
sense.
it, the rule.
Soon we'll find out. Maybe it will make sense.
Yeah,
Ali, are you ready for the next level?
Ready.
What happens if someone is not married? They really are the nicest person.
We don't buy that.
They riding a white horse and they can't find somebody. No one is appearing. Says the Rebbe, we can apply it to a single person equally. Bite refers to the physical body. The body houses what? The soul. The soul descent from God falling down to connect with the body. Says God, when you build a new home, building a new home referring to the soul coming down to this universe for the purpose of purifying the universe, it need to enter into a new home. It's building a new home. You build it slowly with connection.
The birth is
The birth is the new home. The only way for you to achieve your mission is by placing a guardrail. You know why?
What's the guy?
Guardrail is bitul, nullification,
Again,
same thing.
again.
The guardrail is not going to change. Why? Because you're fallen down. As Roger pointed out, the soul descended to a place that she don't belong. She can't connect with. The only way for the soul to survive is with bitul. In other words, the Rebbe points out here, this is the deeper level. The Rebbe points out that the guardrail is not a reason for preventing catastrophe. The guardrail is the only way for the soul to build a new home. It's a prerequisite. That's why the Torah used ki pola nofel mimenu. In other words, it's continuous falling. The only way to build a house, based on this understanding, is when you have a guardrail. What if you don't have a guardrail? The soul will die. The soul will not be able to live there. It's continuously falling, and therefore, to keep the new home existing is by placing a guardrail. That's why the Torah says, when you build a new home, when the soul is descended down to something new in the entire creation of all the angels and spiritual realms, nothing is considered new outside the new physical boundaries that God created. All the spiritual, other spiritual realms and spheres were created by Ila ve'alul, meaning cause and effect. There was a descent, but something new, brand new, is material, physical universe. That's brand new. When you come down, the soul, which is totally the opposite, it's part of God. It's coming to something new, yesh me'ayin, something from nothing. The true nothing from something from nothing is this physical universe. In other words, the true definition of new is this physical human being, or more important, more specific, the physical body. When the godly soul descends to something new that is not used to and never had an experience like, which is the physical body, God says you must have a guardrail from the outset. Why? Ki pola nofel. Because the one who is falling, the soul who is falling down from it, descending from its spiritual height, is falling down. So you want the house to exist, to house people, make sure you have a guardrail. The bitul is the reason that the soul is able to live in the body.
Could you explain nullification to me?
Yes, selfless, serving others, higher purpose.
Thanks.
So does someone who is nullified don't eat ice cream? No, they can enjoy ice cream on a Friday night or Shabbat was a mitzvah, but they don't have a specific flavor. Once you have a specific flavor, I want pecan. I love pecan ice cream. I'm not totally nullified because it's serving my desires. But if I'm served,
About the ice cream to begin with.
just a minute, if I'm served Friday night dinner and there's a mitzvah to enjoy food, and my wife says ice cream is for dessert, I say, sure, I would like to serve God to enjoy the meal, so I'm going to enjoy the ice cream. But she says, do you have any favorite flavor? If I say, yes, I do, can you please serve me pecan flavor? That's no nullification, because now it's my flavor. Did you understand that?
Yeah, but it's.
Yeah, I got a problem with that.
What's so hard?
So the trick is that anybody wants to give you something, say, give me what you want, because we pick out something specific, that's nullification,
Right.
okay?
Because this is in a very short abbreviated because we don't have the time, but says the Rebbe, what's the lesson from here? The lesson is that our purpose in life is to build a new home and keep it alive, keep it in existence. Either the private home of marriage, which accounts as an impact, which impacts the entire Jewish people. That's why God gave us our commandment. In other words, when I live in peace, it affects every single Jew. And when someone is not living in peace, it affects every single Jew. It's our responsibility to make sure people are in peace with each other. That's why we saw that the way their tents in the desert were not facing each other to give privacy, to allow for people to enjoy life together and remove all hurdles. I tell people by the first year that they are married, they are not allowed to invite guests. When I got married, I had my brothers, two brothers in New York. So I would invite them continuously for dinner. And because in yeshiva, food wasn't good. And until today, one of my brothers keep reminding me about the tasty food. There was no other tasty food because they couldn't afford a restaurant. There was no good restaurants anyway. So there were fresh food. They enjoyed dinner, which I was very happy. But then there was a cousin who also decided he wants to visit. And he would call, can I join you for dinner? He was also in the same predicament. He came from another country. I'm not going to say from where. And we were very happy to. But my father-in-law got wind of that. He heard. He was so pissed off. He called that person, his nephew, and he says, how dare you? And he kind of rebuked him very severely. Because he said to him that you need to allow for the couple to, so to say, connect with each other. And dinner time is the time to connect. When you eat, you have an opportunity. You have no other business. Thank God there was no cell phones then. You connect with each other. The same is, this is our business. My business is when everybody else lives in peace with each other. And on the other hand, the purpose of our life is a mission here to create something new that does not exist anywhere else in God's realm. All the spiritual realms, all the spiritual beings, they are unable to create something new. The physical human being is the only place when you can create a new house for God. The way that that house can exist is with a guardrail. What's a guardrail? Bitul.
Seems like all of Torah.
Huh?
You could sum all of Torah up as one word.
Of course. The entire Torah is bitul, right? And this story can be explained on those two levels. Either the new house is the spouse, or the new house is your body. And then says the Rebbe, that's why the Torah says, Zachu, if they are meritorious, Shechina beinehem, the couple will have divinity, God's presence among them. Because if they create a guardrail, God will be there. Same is about our human being. If my new structure, my body, possesses a guardrail, a bitul, then God will rest among us. I hope that I covered this stuff. Have a good Shabbos.